Welcome. We're back again. I'm here today with Bethany Jett. Bethany Jett has so many accomplishments that I would take up her whole class if I listed all of them. But she is an award-winning author. She is co-owner of a literary service. She is the mama of several boys, and she homeschooled them. And so she's also the wife of a youth minister. So with that, I'm going to hand off to Bethany and let her talk to you.
Hey everybody, I'm super excited and truly honored to be part of this conference. I think it's amazing. I wish that I'd had this when I first started homeschooling, to be quite honest, just to learn from everybody. So yes, like he said, we've got 3 boys. My husband was in the military when I met him, and then we did a 10-year sprint or bout, I guess, with youth ministry, and now he is back in the military again. So we are doing the active duty military life. But I'm excited to go ahead and jump on in and kind of just share how to homeschool, I guess, through the busy seasons. And I know we're going to have a varying demographic of, parents who are new to homeschool, or probably a lot of you have more experience than I did going into this. But what I'm excited to do is just share some tips that I found, because homeschool was really a blessing for us. During the 3 years that we did homeschool, Justin went back into the military. He deployed. He was gone for 6 months and then had smaller deployments. Even then, I started going into a master's program and also started 2 companies and was writing a book. And it was just craziness. And so homeschooling allowed us to have the flexibility and still keep the priorities of keeping our family sort of at the focus. And so with that, I'm excited to just kind of go ahead and jump on in. So I'm going to share my screen and go through a few slides. This is my family. These are my sweet 3 little babies, and they keep me on my toes. I will tell you, it was interesting having to homeschool 3 different personalities, and I know many parents completely understand that. So my little one down there is very self-motivated, so it was easy to do a curriculum where he could kind of just go through it at his own pace, where I could help. My oldest son just liked to get his work done so he could have the rest of the time to do what he wanted. And then my middle son is so smart, but just did not want to do, did not want to do anything. And so that kind of helps. I think it shapes you as parents to really understand how your kids learn. And also you have to get creative with how you're going to get the work accomplished. I know for us, we didn't know if we were going to actually be sending the kids back to school, which they are back in school now, but or if this was going to be a lifelong thing. We took it year by year, but I wanted to make sure that at some point, if they did go back into the school system, they wouldn't be behind. And so I think that kind of like feeling of, am I doing enough for them? Am I actually giving them everything that they need, kind of always sticks in your mind. So with that, let's talk about how to do this during the busy seasons. So the very first tip that I have for you is to protect your mornings. Now there's a guy named Jim Quick who is a brain expert. I'm gonna go back and forth between screens and me. So he teaches celebrities how to speed read. He teaches a lot on memory. His last name is K-W-I-K. So if you Google him, you will find all kinds of great information. He's got a TED Talk, possibly more than one. And I just heard him a couple months ago talk about, if you win your morning, you win your day. And so I have really taken that concept to heart. But one thing that he talked about was, when he's working with clients, he tells them not to look at their phones for that first hour of the day. And so basically staying off email, staying off social media, kind of letting you have time away from all of that before you dig in. And so because often that's how I started my mornings when I was homeschooling, or when I'm not homeschooling, I was always just checking, what happened through the night or the last time that I had checked. And since dropping that habit, things have gone so much smoother. So now it's my first tip for any kind of conference or workshop that I speak on. What he said is that when you look at your phone, or you're getting on social or doing email or anything like that, you're giving your brain those feel-good hormones. And so you start your day off going on this upward scale. which then it has to drop back down. And so we don't want to teach our brains that we're going to have this big high in the morning and then have to kind of like pick ourselves back up to that. So one of the things that I wanted to share was kind of how I've started planning. And if I was doing homeschool this year, I would be using the same system. So if anyone's familiar with me, you guys know I love planners. It's like my favorite thing. I love the disc-bound planner system. This is the Happy Planner. I'm a big Happy Planner, but you can use any kind of planner system. But what my big tip is to divide and compartmentalize things. And so in this planner, I have different tabs for how I want to start my day. And so I divide them into different categories. And so in this book would be, I have like a financial section, but I have a spiritual section, a physical section, which would be like a health section to kind of track food or weight or, you know, anything that you're doing health-wise. I also have journaling pages in here to kind of get my thoughts out. And then like space to free write because I'm an author. So I like to do that, just kind of creative space. And so what you do is if you have a planner system that you like or create one, you kind of start at the front and you work your way back. And so for that power hour for me in the morning, it's just starting at the front tab and then moving to each tab. So I have my quiet time, my devotional time. I'm writing down and being aware of what I'm eating or how much water I'm intaking, thinking back from the next day. There's a gratitude section in here where I can, you know, think about the blessings that God's given me. But doing this in the morning instead of going straight to my phone has changed everything. It's something that I wish I had done during those homeschool years. And then this is my work planner, but this is what I would use as a homeschool planner. And basically just keeping everything sectioned by month. And so I would have a different section for each one of the kids for like the month of August as we're coming in. That will kind of track the things that they're doing all in one spot. And so the trick with this planner, if you look up any kind of planning system, if you look up the term Franken planning, like Frankenstein plus planning, it's called Franken planning. And so it's when you'll pull different pieces of different planners into one place where everything lives. And so I do this for like multiple areas of life, but you could pull like a month out for each child or that way, or each subject divided up that way. And then like once the month is over, you can take these pages out because they just come out really easily. And then you can pop it back into wherever you're holding the rest of the month. So behind me, I have August through July of next year in the planners behind me. And so this weekend, I'll be taking out all the pages in here and replacing them with fresh August pages. And so that same system can work very easily with homeschool too. And they've got some homeschool happy planner groups, but you don't have to use a happy planner to get the ideas from that. But really going back to protecting the morning and working through like your own personal stuff first is really helpful. And for me, when life was busy, I used to neglect all of this. You know, I would squeeze quiet time in whenever I could, or I would think I'll do it before I go to bed, and then it wouldn't happen. But I find that when you kind of give yourself that first time in the morning, you give God that first time, he really stretches your day for you and things just go better. So that's like my big tip now for everything. All right, so going back to the screen here. First tip is protect your mornings. And then my second tip is to be what I call perma-flexible, which is a combination of permanently flexible, just combined together. And so what I mean by this is we kind of live our life never really knowing when, when my husband's going to be going on another mission. And that was great when we were homeschooling and it gave us a lot of flexibility, but we continue to kind of have this philosophy. So if we have appointments that need to happen, like a doctor's appointment or a work appointment, those are things that go on the calendar as like musts. But everything else, we kind of think in block scheduling and it can be moved. So when it came to homeschooling the boys, we would often have a book basket, which I think that's classical conversations. I know a lot of different kinds of groups do the concept of having like books in a basket, and then the kids can take the books and do reading time. So we did a lot of reading time. But book basket was one of the things during the day, which was permanently flexible. So if I needed to have work time in the afternoon, we would do book basket in the morning. And vice versa, depending on how my work schedule was going for the day, kind of dictated how the rest of the homeschool schedule was going to go. Or looking at a week and up front, we might do 3 days of homeschool, block it out, and the kids would have the 2 days off at the end. I know a lot of parents do this kind of scheduling almost naturally, but it was something that we just adopted in as just kind of like a family philosophy, and it's worked really well for us. Just making sure, as long as those things actually get done in your day or even in the week, we really went to a week view versus a day view when it came to homeschool. And I saw one mom on YouTube, and I don't remember her name, and if I find her, I will pass it on, but she kind of did her subjects, her teaching subjects like this. And so she had a basket with all the different subjects, like different books and things for her kids in there. And so if they were going to do science on Mondays, but something came up, she would just take the science block and move it to the back of the week. And so that they would continue to go through the system as she had laid out for the week. And then she would try to find time to pull the science back in versus switching up the rest of the days in order to make the science happen. And I thought that was a great example of being permanently flexible and saying, okay, we are going to get the science done, but we're just going to keep moving on and letting that happen. And I think giving yourself a lot of grace when things don't go as planned is also really the secret and the key here. So, all right, so we're going to jump into my third tip. So number 1 was protect your mornings. Number 2 is be perma-flexible. And then number 3 is this concept that I created called pre-mommy. And so we still kind of do pre-mommy here. My husband really thought this idea was kind of fun, super funny. So when he was deployed and it was just me with the 3 boys, they were still 2 in elementary school and 1 in middle school. I had a lot of energy in it. And at that time I was going to school and had started the 2 companies. And so our day did not start off early in the morning, going down into the afternoon. A lot of times I was working with my business partners really late into the night. Like once I had the kids in bed, I was still up for another 4 to 5 hours working on business things. And so that meant I may not be going to bed until 2 or 3. And I was doing laundry at that point. I was just trying to do all those things that you have to do, especially when you're kind of single parenting at the time. And so pre-mommy happened just as a life-saving moment for me because my kids love video games. And so if I wasn't going to go to bed till 2 or 3, I didn't want to be up at 7. I couldn't exist on 4 hours of sleep. And so I might not wake up until a little bit later in the morning so I could at least get maybe 6 or 7 hours in. So I told the kids that, listen, if you will be quiet, if I don't hear you in the morning, and this worked because they were old enough to feed themselves, there was trust there. They were old enough to do that. But I was like, if you can just be quiet and give me some time to sleep, because I don't know how late I'm going to be up, then you can have video games until I get up. But the moment I get up, that's when we started going through our schedule with them, with school and everything. And it's amazing how nice and kind my 3 boys could be to each other when they had a common goal. And my husband said when he came home one day and saw this in person, he had gone out, probably for a workout or something, and come in. And as soon as he shut the door, the boys were, shushing him. And he's like, what are you guys doing? And they're like, Mommy's asleep, so don't wake her up. And this has worked out very, very well for us. And sometimes if I have a late night, sometimes I'll say, listen, you can have pre-mommy time, over the summer, or even with all the COVID stuff happening and the kids were having to homeschool without having the benefit of homeschool for those last couple of months, we would implement a little bit of this as well if I needed to work late. So have your own pre-mommy time or whenever you need to use it. It was amazing how good your kids can be when they are properly motivated. So that worked out really, really well. It was a lifesaver for me. Otherwise, I probably would have lost my sanity. All right, so I'm going to go jump into tip number 4. Share this. All right, this gem saved my life. And this tip was to color code everything. And with the 3 boys, that's exactly what we did. Sort of like Alvin and the Chipmunks, I just said, what colors are the most easily found at the store probably? What colors do most companies make things in? And so it went red, blue, and green, starting with the oldest, the middle. Red, green, and blue is actually the order that we did our boys. And so their books, their notebooks, pencils, buckets. I even went so far as to have their towels be in the same color, because then I would know if I see a towel on the floor whose towel it was. And they got kind of protective over their colors. So as I get older, we still do this a little bit. With homeschool, everything was very strictly color coded. And that helped so much just at a glance to be able to see whose stuff I was looking at. And for organization, I would do blue, red, and green folders in a big filing tote to kind of house their paperwork. But for this last Easter, I wondered if the colors were enough for them to know whose thing was whose without having names on it. So, for their Easter baskets, I, kind of went to Dollar Tree and just got them some cute little buckets. And now we kind of do just food seems to be like the big thing for the boys. And so I just filled them up with snacks, and I used red, green, and blue tissue paper, no names. And they knew exactly which ones they were. So this has kind of been ingrained in them since a young age. It'll be interesting to see as they get older if they still gravitate toward these colors or if they shun them completely. But then sometimes there'll be like a blue and a red item, but not a green one. So sometimes there wouldn't be all three colors. And so a lot of times that happened with the green color. And so in that case, my middle son would get, we'd have red, black, and blue, or someone would have just a substitute color for that thing. But still, it's worked out really well. And I will say, like, we still color code our stuff today. So that was like the biggest time saving tip too. It took a lot of decision making of things out for me, because I could just boom, 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 here's your stuff and go, and they knew. And it also, I think, decreased fighting because they had their own things and nobody was like pulling each other's stuff. And then me not being able to know whose it really was. So I think it helped stop a lot of fighting as well. So that was like a super great tip, and I really appreciated it. So, okay, I'm going to jump into some more tips. Just kind of, these things are just kind of how I found myself trying to multitask and get the most out of the homeschool day as possible, so that we could have other things happening. So let's go to the next one. All right, so one thing is that lunchtime became showtime. And so I'm all about using resources that other people have found to work well instead of trying to reinvent the wheel. And so I would go on Pinterest or Google or Twitter, even trying to find like what are some really great like Netflix shows. And you can do it with any kind of streaming service that you have. Or even if you don't have, if you don't have streaming like Netflix or Hulu, you could probably just see TV or get movies from the library or something. But instead of letting lunchtime just kind of be where we just sat around talking, I incorporated a movie or a show or something that was going to be part of their homeschool. And so this was actually a great thing because they loved sharks. I went through this whole shark period. And so we watched a couple of shark movies, and we watched one of the like kind of fun ones. And then we would watch like a Nature's Discovery one. And so as we're sitting around having lunch together, we would be talking about the movies or the shows or whatever. But then after that was done, I would assign them a project, like write a few paragraphs about what you learned, depending on the grade level, or draw a picture, or I tried to find some free worksheets or something that they could do based on sharks, just as an example. But those lunchtime memories, especially because at this time still Justin was gone overseas, those were precious memories. Even just thinking back on them, we had such a good time. And it didn't feel so much like school, but it felt like them being able to learn about the things they wanted to learn about. And I loved it because that lunch hour became school hour without them realizing it. They thought they were going to watch a show with lunch and then do school afterwards, but actually I was incorporating that into the day, and it really made a difference. And it was very special. So I really, really loved that. All right, next one. Kind of mentioned this one already. Book basket was like a really big deal for us. I love books, and I really want to incorporate reading, into my kids. None of them tend to just gravitate towards books. I think I read a lot as a child and loved to read and preferred it over most everything else. I don't really see that in my kids, so I have to kind of force them to do this. So sometimes we'd have 2 book basket times a day, but this also helped if one kid needed more attention or if two kids needed attention during the day, I could split it where one kid could go do book basket and then I'd be working with one child, and then they would flip. And then my third would do book basket at another time. But sometimes we would do separate book baskets, and then we'd have a time together where we're all reading. And that was great because it gave me a chance to actually read as well. And something I don't tend to not give myself permission to kind of take those breaks and read. But it was also good, I think, to model it for the kids. So that kind of helped motivate me to take time out of my day to kind of rest and read as well. So lots of trips to the libraries, which most of them are closed right now. So this is difficult, but I know there's a lot of apps out there that you can download books for free from the library, the ebook versions. Even yesterday, my husband was putting Hoopla, which is Hoopla, onto the boys' phones because they can get free ebooks that way. And then the Kindle app is really, really great. If you have Kindle Unlimited, there's lots of books that they can read there. And some books are even in the common domain where they're online listed for free because the copyright is not in place, or whatever the right terminology is there. But books were always really great. And then one thing too, another tip is to check Facebook Marketplace in your area, because lots of people are selling books as bundles. And so I've been able to bring in a lot of young adult speculative books that the kids seem to kind of gravitate towards. Just over the last few weeks, we were able to do porch pickup and get books at a very inexpensive price, which is great, especially because the libraries down here weren't really open or functioning well. So lots of ways to get your hands on books. There's also Facebook groups like Homeschool groups, which are super great, and you can get a lot of people to pass on, like, what kind of books are you doing with your kids, and then a lot of free resources, which I've got some names of resources listed in here to help. But Facebook and then asking other parents was always a big one for us. So that is Book Basket in a nutshell. Oh, the other thing that I heard about Book Basket was someone had mentioned putting stuffed animals or like loveys into the basket as well. And these would be special animals that they could only sit with while they were reading. And so my kids each have like one special thing that they like to sleep with, but they had a ton of stuffed animals up in their rooms, and it just kind of caused a mess. So when I read that, we got a bigger basket for their books, because those books we would cycle in and out as we went through the library and things, or I'd pull them off the shelf and stick them in there. So they got to go pick two or three of their favorite stuffed animals, the ones they didn't sleep with at night, like not their special one. And we stuck them into the book basket. And so especially for my younger two, that became very special because it was now like off limits for some of the time. It made the book basket time more agreeable to them, and they were excited to have their stuffed animal with them. And then they had to put him back with the book, and it kind of created I think like a sweet little reverence for books is what I'm hoping it was kind of putting in there, or for this reading time in particular. So that's a couple tips for Book Basket. All right, let's go to the next one. All right, so this one is home economics and entrepreneurship. So this is one that I kind of have like a lot of little tips and things to share about home economics and entrepreneurship. So one of the great things about homeschool is that you're able to choose the topics that you're homeschooling about, and you really get to pour a lot of yourself into your kids. And one thing that my husband and I felt was really important was to teach our boys skills that they're supposed to learn at home but don't get taught in school, specifically home economics and entrepreneurship. And so this became a time, even when they were little, I think my youngest was 6 or 7, we also really wanted to teach the boys how to do chores and be responsible for things around the house, not just to be a help, especially, during the deployment times or the busy times, but also because I want my boys to be able to grow up and not need mama to do their laundry when they're in college, which of course I'll be begging for them to bring their clothes back, I'm sure, so I can do their laundry for them. But we want them to be very self-sufficient and not be the kids that go off and don't know how to do anything and don't know how to take care of themselves. And so this became a very big opportunity for us to kind of put some of those values that we found needed to be in homeschool into place. And so we always made sure that they had the core subjects like language and math and science and some history, because we love history. But this was also equally important. So teaching them how to do laundry, um, and then incorporating the school aspect into everyday life. And so we never really said, okay, we're going to do laundry, set the timer, but this also became like word problems. If we have to do 2 loads of laundry, if the dryer takes this amount of time, how long do we need to block off for the whole day to get the laundry done? So being able to incorporate some of that into the homeschool was very, very helpful. Or even, teaching them to do the dishes, teaching them how to like start off making eggs, use the oven, all the skills that if they had been home with me their entire lives, I probably would have taught my older ones at a younger age. So again, just very, very special time to teach them home economics. On the entrepreneurship side, we thought it was very important too that the boys understand the skills that they're actually going to need, in everyday life. Like as I was starting these businesses, there's skills to that. You need to understand finances, for example, and that's for anybody. But also like how to do social media properly, how to do YouTube videos, how to build audience, how to do all these things, like platform, all the things that I was working on as an author with the companies. I wanted to kind of teach those skills to the boys early, because I think the earlier that they know how to do this, the more comfortable and confident they're going to feel when they actually go into the workplace and they start doing whatever it is that God created them to do. And so my husband is into like IT is what he does in communications. There's a lot of technology stuff around my house, which is this crazy blend of me loving books and him loving technology. I'm trying to put both aspects into our kids' lives. But he had found you can get like iPhones very, very inexpensive, and they do not have to be hooked up to service. So you're not paying every month for them, but they still have all the camera features and things of the phone. It's just that it's not hooked up to a phone number. So the boys each had one of those. And so we started doing things where, like for one session on podcasting, I was explaining what podcasts are, why people like them. And then at that time, my boys were really into Beyblades. I don't know if any other parents in here have gone through the Beyblade stage. We've gone through the Pokemon stage, the Beyblade stage. We're in the Lego stage again. But at that time they were doing that. And so what Beyblades are is you have this like plastic arena and this spinning toy and this thing that pulls out so that you can pull it, and then it spins like a top, and then they go at each other in the arena and they knock into each other, and the last one spinning is the winner. So this is this whole world around Beyblades. So my challenge to the boys one day for part of their homeschool was use your phone without using video, explain to people what is going on while you're doing a Beyblade battle. So I remember my littlest one was, I think he was 7 or 8, and he's just using the voice memo on his phone, and he is describing the Beyblade event just like an announcer on TV would be. And he's using all the names of the bays, and and it was really interesting to watch as they were taking this concept of using, telling a story about something that's happening to people who can't see it, and having to describe what it looks like and the sounds. And I think, even if they're not going to be podcasters or be on YouTube, that's not a big deal. But the fact that these are skills that they're starting to learn now, I think it's going to help them in speech class. I think it's going to help them as leaders being able to break things down in a way that makes sense to people. And so really just taking these kind of skills that we need and marrying them to what is going on right now that they could know, maybe podcasts, and then something that they love, which was the Beyblades. And because they were playing with the Beyblades during this, again, they didn't think of it so much as school, but and as I was kind of helping them or giving them suggestions, it's really this kind of teaching by play method. And I hope it sticks, but we really loved that kind of thing. Another thing we did with the entrepreneurship side was flip challenges, which is when you can go to, garage sales, Facebook Marketplace, or the thrift store, or like even if you find something on the side of the road, because let's be honest, we've all done it. Someone's giving something away. My husband loves to flip stuff. He's very handy and he can like refinish and repurpose things. And so, that's just kind of what he does for fun. And he teaches the boys how to use the hammer, use the nails, like hopefully they're not using the saws, but he may be teaching them those skills out in the garage, but he's teaching them how to build things. And part of that, I think, is going to help them because, it's always smart to repurpose, and teaching them to save money by how can this object be used for what we need, instead of just going and buying something new. And so that was really good for them as well. And so as they participate with him in these flipping things, he gives them part of the money because they'll relist stuff on Facebook Marketplace. And so that's just kind of become a fun thing that they, especially in the last year or so, that they've been doing. But we started doing this with some of the stuff that they had in their house, in their rooms, not in their house, in their rooms already. Because I don't know about you, but I always feel like my kids have too many toys. Like there's just too much stuff that they have. And so we'd go through and say, okay, what is actually going to be of value here, and what could we get rid of, and what do you think somebody would pay for it? And so then this leads into discussions over, okay, so you have X number of dollars in your account. We're going to save some of that. You need to give some to church. And this is the rest of the money that you have to play with. And, when you're little, well, I mean, if you get $5 or $10, like, and I don't let you spend that full $10, they're not really happy about that. Or if they get $1 and we have to break it down into coins, again, teaching money and, fractions and percentages and things as you're doing the split thing, you're pulling the money side into it too. I'm hoping that it gives them a better appreciation for $1, and how also teaching them a skill on how to make money quickly if they ever need to, that they're not ever going to have to be dependent upon someone else. They can have that inner motivation to say, okay, I need something. This is what I can do to make that happen. And so really trying to build a lot of character into the kids on the entrepreneurship side. So in fact, if we had kept homeschooling, that would have been the entire curriculum that I was starting to create, was like entrepreneurship homeschool, and basically all language, math, like science, all those things incorporated underneath entrepreneurship umbrellas, basically. I really think that's fascinating. So I could talk about that forever, possibly. So if anyone's got questions on those kinds of things, like I am all ears on that. But I just have a couple more tips to go through on how to homeschool through the busy times. So let me go ahead and share screen, and we'll go to the next one. All right, so this next one is utilizing co-ops and Facebook groups. So two different things here. A co-op is a group of people who live, in a close or similar area. I think we had to drive maybe 20, 25 minutes sometimes to get to one of our co-ops. But it's just a group of other homeschool families who are getting together usually once a week, I think, and teaching, having parents teach different classes. So that way, not only are the kids making friends, but they're also able to learn from other people besides just you. So we really appreciated co-op days, although sometimes I was like, I just want to do this myself. I don't want to go. But once we got there, we were always so happy, and it gave the kids a chance to meet other kids who were being homeschooled, so it didn't feel like so isolating for them. And it also got them to hear different perspectives from people. Science is not my subject, so I was always appreciative of the other parents who would do the science classes for the kids and really let them get their hands dirty with crafts and things. And I always appreciated being able to utilize other people's like brilliance to help teach the kids. And then I'm sure a lot of people know about co-op, so I don't really want to spend like a lot of time on there, but as somebody who's super introverted, I didn't really want to do this. I really did it because I felt like my kids needed it. But it was nice to meet other parents, and just on a personal level, I think it helps stretch you and grow you as well. But some co-ops are free, and some are just completely on Facebook. The YMCA over by our house has like a homeschool program, to where You can, like, it was like 1 day a week. And so obviously with everything that's going on, programs are always different, sometimes canceled right now. But I would check to see if your local YMCA or any of the gyms have a program where they would do like 4 or 5 hours once a week for kids that were homeschooled. And then a lot of the parents would either go work out during that time, or they could kind of sit around the table and talk or do some work or whatever they needed to do. And it was just a nice little break. But that group at this specific YMCA had a Facebook group as well, and they were very active. And so if somebody was going to go do a field trip, let's, field trip in quotes, they were going to do a field trip like to the museum, they might reach out and say, listen, I'm taking my kids on this day from this time. Here's how much the admission is. Some actually organizations will offer discounts to homeschool families. Like if you're part of I think there are a couple homeschool groups that you can join. We joined the one, it was like the legal one. It's a really big one. I wish I had it in front of me because I was completely blanked on it. But we got a card that had like a membership number and the dates and things, and you could get discounts places for that. So they would kind of give that information. If anybody wanted to go, they could go. And it was a lot of fun to be able to do some of those activities and also feel like we're giving the boys a very rich experience instead of just being home all the time. And lots of great pictures and memory making. And then again, you're teaching the kids as you're going to the museums, they're learning without really knowing that they're learning. It just was a really fun experience for everybody. But especially now that a lot of things are closed, I think the importance of online groups is even more important. So I would just look on Facebook, I would just search for the word homeschool, and then maybe your city. And there's probably a group already there. And if you can't find one, I would go to the next bigger city out and just start joining some of them. You might already have mutual friends with people who are there and build some connections that way. And a lot of resources and tips and ideas get passed around there. And it's also a safe place to be able to share frustrations that you're having, or if you need help on a certain subject, you've got this wealth of experience from the other parents. And the other thing that is nice about joining these groups is, as a new homeschooling mom, like I said, I never felt like I was doing enough. Was I doing the right things? Like, was I permanently, damaging my kids from ever going to college? Just all these weird mom guilt kind of thoughts that I would have. But the nice thing about the co-ops is that some of the moms were new like me, but some of them had already had kids go through high school, and because they lived in the area long enough, they knew exactly what the laws were for homeschool, the right kind of paperwork. In Florida, we had to do portfolio reviews, or they had to take a standardized test. So I chose portfolio reviews with a teacher, someone who had a licensed certificate, and they had names of people that they knew and trusted who were pro homeschool, who were licensed teachers, who would do portfolio reviews for a small fee. And that was helpful. I don't know that I would have found those people had it not been for the co-op. So along with the kids having so much, fun and learning, it also helped me make sure I was on the right track, because now you are the administrator, like the school would be. You're having to handle all that. And it felt overwhelming sometimes because I just didn't know what I didn't know. And so I would suggest getting on Facebook groups. I'm going to add to this though. If you're on Instagram has a huge homeschooling community. And so to kind of find them, when you're on Instagram, let's say on your computer, go to the search bar at the very top. Sorry, I keep making my camera zoom in and out. Go to the search bar at the top and just type #homeschool mom or homeschooling. And then what's going to pop up are the top 9 accounts, the ones that have the most interaction or views or comments, probably within the last hour. And then I don't really know how long those stay there, but then underneath of that, it'll say most recent. And those pictures are people who have used that hashtag, who are homeschooling now, like they've just posted that photo. And that's going to change all the time, because it depends on how, every time someone uses that hashtag, the most recent list changes. But it's a great way to go ahead and find people who are suggesting resources. Some of these homeschooling parents, they have Pinterest boards full of ideas. I started a Pinterest homeschool board when I was going through there. That's something I can also share that. I didn't put the link in here, but I can also share that as well. On Pinterest, I'm the Bethany Jett. and there's a homeschool board that's open. So feel free to take any of the resources that are in there. They really helped us a lot. But Pinterest is also a great place to look for downloadables and free worksheets or curriculum. Oh, and that's another great thing about Facebook groups is that sometimes people are selling curriculum. And if you're not sold into like one specific system, you can kind of very inexpensively get resources from a bunch of different ones. And it also gives you a chance to ask people how they liked it and to see if it's going to work within your style of teaching and your kids' style of learning. And then there's also groups on Facebook that are curriculum driven. So there's Abeka, My Father's World. They have like buy sell groups there too. And so it's another way to go ahead and share resources like that. So talking of resources, I'm going to share my screen again and show you guys some of the resources that I found to be super helpful. And I hope that you find them helpful as well. All right, so these are some of the resources that we found. I found myself going back to them over and over and over. So this is absolutely not a comprehensive list. Teachers Pay Teachers has an option for parents on there. Some of the items, once in a while there'll be free ones, but they're also very inexpensive for worksheets. What I liked about Teachers Pay Teachers is that they're created by teachers. So I knew that based on the grade level, I could kind of see, okay, this is what the teachers are teaching for third grade. I need to either maybe use their resource or make sure that I'm using teaching on those same similar subjects as well. That was important to us, like I said earlier, just in case the boys went back to school. I didn't want them to be, I wanted to make sure that they were at least keeping up with what was happening, but also working at their own pace. So it kind of helped me stay on topic as far as subjects that they needed to be talking about. AllinoneHomeschool.com is the website for the Easy Peasy. And this, if I'm saying this correctly, I believe it's a mom who, as she was creating the homeschool curriculum for her kids and putting it all together, she just started documenting that. And I believe it's a free site. It was when I was using it. And she really lists like day by day. It's a very comprehensive site. I know a few homeschool families who are only using the Easy Peasy system, and she kind of has everything there for you. She stays on top of it. If there's links that don't work, she wants to know so she can put them right back, put it right back up. So she's really done a lot of outsourcing online for other free content and resources, and then putting it into one spot, giving credit to where it comes from. So that would be one to check out for sure, whether it becomes your full system or you just use parts of it. She's done like a really great job getting all that together. The one I use the most, I would say though, would be education.com. I did pay for the year for it on the parents side of things, and I don't regret it at all. I think I renewed it every 3 years. You can look at subjects based on grade level, and then it also helped me determine, okay, so maybe my son isn't able to move into this type of math at what they would consider a third grade level. We're still back at second grade level. So it gave me the opportunity to move between the grades so that I could pick out what I needed for my kids without saying, this is third grade work, this is fourth grade work. Like we kind of didn't talk in those terms during homeschool. But on the mom side, I was able to go in and also see like, okay, this is what they're saying third graders should be learning. Have we done any of this? Is he ready to move on into this? Or we can move forward in it as well. And so like we could go into higher grade levels in certain subjects as the kids were, performing better. So I loved education.com. I loved the worksheets. I loved the packets that they had. And then they also had like lesson plans in there too, which I didn't utilize a lot of those just because it wasn't my style so much, but it was nice to be able to see how the teachers were explaining to other teachers how to use the lesson plan. And so that was helpful with some of the subjects that I wasn't very, I didn't feel like I was really good at teaching it, and it kind of gave me an extra resource there. Khan Academy was a program that when my kids were in school before we started homeschooling, this is one of those like extra ones that they wanted the kids to do. I believe it's still free. There might be a paid plan for it, but we always did the free thing with Khan Academy. It's teacher based, so the kids can actually watch videos on the subjects, and then they do assessments afterwards, and then parents can see like the progress level for each subject, and you actually have so much control over it shows you how much time your kid actually spent working in the subject, like if how much, I don't remember the exact terminology that they use on the program, but if they were succeeding, let's say in the decimals section, or if they needed more work, it would tell you those things. And then it would offer resources and actual videos where they could watch somebody teaching it. And my kids seem to learn better from other people than they did from me once they got a little bit older. So it was really helpful for the math and science, like for them to be able to go through that. And what's nice about it too is this was something where I could say, listen, you need to go do an hour of Khan Academy and kind of let them do some self-directed learning there, because I could monitor it and say, listen, I know that you didn't do it. You only spend 25 minutes. Or I could go in and say, listen, I know you want to go move on to, fractions, but we need to actually go back in here because you need to get a higher, not really a grade, but you need to get a higher marks, I guess, in this before we move on. So it helped me really understand where my kids were at skill level wise. And then that helped me know, okay, this is where we need to focus for a little while. Maybe we need to work on multiplication, longer than I thought that we did, because I thought we had it, but we didn't. So anyway, Khan Academy was great. And then, like I mentioned just a few minutes ago, Pinterest was a great place. It's an amazing mecca of homeschool, just worksheets and tips and things. And a lot of moms who blog put their stuff on Pinterest. So it was also a way then to go and kind of connect with websites and blogs where moms had other kind of tips, and maybe YouTube channels. And so I felt like I was getting involved in this online community and really getting some great tips and resources. But Pinterest is where I started, and that's how I found a lot of them. And then the Facebook cell groups, like I mentioned before. Again, I see Jolene said, yeah, I love Teachers Pay Teachers. So many resources. I'm just always so very grateful for these. And then that we are coming to the kind of end of this. I didn't want to like over explain things that people maybe kind of already knew. So I just have my last slide is just how to stay connected with me. It's my website, BethanyJett.com. Hey, Cynthia.
Hey, that was really good. I learned a lot, and my kids are grown. I can't do any of that stuff. Such a great presentation. I particularly liked where you were talking about making sure that your mornings are, quiet and free, so that you can kind of plan your day rather than waking up and being terrified and tense about what's on your list to do. So stay away from that phone and that video online for a while. I think that is a great idea. I also, did you mean Homeschool Legal Defense when you were talking about the legal one?
Maybe.
That was one, I joined that because I had a disabled child, and they kind of back you up.
Yes.
So that if anything were to happen, they would be behind you. And so that was really helpful. I love the pre-mommy idea. I love that. That is such a good idea. I think we need to recommend that. And let's see, your PermaFlex. That is such a good idea, where you always have something where you can rotate your schedule, because listen, things are going to happen when you homeschool. That is just the way life is, because life is that way. I want to give you a really big thank you for being with us today. And I know that everybody that listens is going to get a lot out of it. So a big thank you. We appreciate you, Bethany.
Thank you so much for having me. This was it was fun to go back and like think through those fun memories, the boys.
Yes, I have lots of fun memories. And I know you were talking about the sharks. We did the same thing with hummingbirds, and we would watch the hummingbirds come to the hummingbird feeder and fight over the hummingbird stuff. So you have such good memories when you homeschool with your kids and do stuff with them.
You do. Yes.
Thank you, and we'll talk to you later.
Great. Thank you.